Have you ever felt like, over the years, other people's expectations seem to multiply while your own desires fall to the bottom of the list? Maybe you've given up a quiet afternoon because it's what's expected of you, or given in to guilt when you wanted to say no. How ironic, right? We reach this stage looking for peace, yet we continue to sacrifice parts of ourselves for others. Today, I want to invite you to reflect on something essential. Those things you shouldn't give up, not even for the people you love most. Because as harsh as it may sound, if you don't prioritize yourself, no one else will. Stay with me until the end, because the last lesson might be just what you need to change the way you face this stage of your life. Let's begin. Number 1, don't sacrifice your time for empty commitments. Time, that currency you can't save or get back, seems to be the one we give away most easily without thinking. How many times have you found yourself in a conversation you're not interested in, at a meeting that offers nothing, or agreeing to do something just to avoid disappointing others? It's strange how, even in a stage of life where time becomes more valuable, we still act as if we have plenty of it. We tell ourselves it's out of obligation, or that it's the right thing to do. But is it really right to sacrifice the one thing we can never replace? Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, warned about the danger of living according to others' interests. The most powerful man is the one who has control over his own time. And here we are, trapped in commitments we didn't choose, with our schedules dictated by priorities that aren't ours. But who taught us that this was an honorable way to live? Probably a mix of culture, education, and that internal voice that fears disappointing others. The problem with empty commitments is not just that they consume your hours, but that little by little, they drain your energy and your peace. Every time you say yes to something you don't want to do, you're saying no to what really matters. To that book, waiting on your nightstand, to that walk you enjoy so much, or simply to that moment of peace you desperately need. It's as if someone else is writing your story while you watch from afar, waiting for a chapter where you finally become the protagonist. This doesn't mean you should live in selfish isolation, but rather choose intentionally where to spend your time. Saying no isn't an act of rejection towards others, but an act of affirmation towards yourself. Every time you choose to prioritize what truly resonates with you, you're sending a clear message: my life matters, and my time deserves to be lived fully. Stoic philosophy teaches us that the value of things isn't in their quantity, but in their quality. Epictetus expressed it simply: it's not the number of things you do that matters, but how you do them. It's a reminder that the quality of your life is directly tied to the quality of what you choose to do with your time. If you fill your days with soulless commitments, don't be surprised if, in the end, you feel empty. Imagine a day where each activity is a reflection of what you truly value. A conversation that enriches you, an activity that fills you with joy, or simply the luxury of doing nothing. That's the power of consciously choosing how to live your hours. And while the world may not understand it, while someone might get upset because you decided to prioritize yourself, the truth is that small act of rebellion will be what brings you the peace you so long for. In the end, your time is yours, and there's no greater gift than using it to create moments that truly deserve to be remembered. Let every second you give be an investment in what really matters. Because as Seneca said, we live as if we were never going to die, but the truth is, many have already died a long time ago by letting others live for them. Don't be one of them. Number 2, don't give up your emotional independence. Isn't it curious how life seems to train us to emotionally depend on everything and everyone except ourselves? From a young age, we're taught that it's good to be supportive, to care for others, and there's no doubt that this has its merit. But no one tells us that, if we don't set boundaries, this concern can turn into a rope that strangles us. Suddenly, our emotions seem more dictated by what others do or don't do than by our own decisions. It's as if we're wearing an invisible sign that says, "Please do whatever you want with my peace of mind." A few years ago, I met Rosa, a 72-year-old woman with a special sparkle in her eyes, though you could also sense a fatigue in her words. Rosa told me that, throughout her life, she had been the emotional pillar of her family. She was the one her children turned to when they had problems with their partners, the shoulder her friends needed to cry on, and of course, the one who always solved any last-minute drama. "And don't get me wrong, Gabriel," she told me. "I love them, but I feel like I have no space left for myself. It's like my emotions depend on how they're doing." One day, Rosa decided to do something she had never done. She went alone to a weekend retreat without telling anyone. When she came back, her oldest daughter called her, outraged, because she hadn't been available to listen to how her partner had disappointed her again. Rosa, with a calm she didn't know she had, replied, "Sweetheart, I love you, but I also need to love myself, and this weekend was for me." That phrase changed something in her family dynamics. At first, there was resistance, reproaches, even a bit of guilt thrown like an arrow. But over time, her family understood that Rosa was claiming something that had always belonged to her emotional independence. What Rosa learned is something many of us forget. Your emotional well-being cannot be tied to what others do or need, because if it is, you'll live like a leaf in the wind, without your own direction, always responding to the currents others create. It's not about being indifferent or stopping loving those around you. It's about remembering that your emotions are yours, and you have the right and responsibility to manage them from a place of autonomy. The Stoics spoke a lot about this. Epictetus said, "If someone wrongs you, remember that it's not what they do, but your interpretation of it that affects you." In other words, you decide how much power you give others over your inner peace. You can't control their actions, but you can control how you choose to respond to them. Imagine for a moment what your life would be like if you stopped emotionally depending on what others do or expect from you. If you could listen to complaints without absorbing them, accompany without feeling responsible for fixing everything, and love without losing yourself in the process. That's true emotional independence. Not disconnecting from others, but connecting with yourself first, so that what you offer comes from a place of balance, not exhaustion. So here's the great lesson that Rosa and the Stoics gift us. Don't sacrifice your emotional well-being on the altar of others' expectations. If something doesn't do you good, you have every right to say no. And if someone doesn't understand that, maybe what they need isn't your unconditional support, but the chance to learn to stand on their own. Because in the end, the best gift you can give others is a version of yourself that knows how to be happy on its own, without depending on anyone else. Number 3, don't give up your peace for family conflicts. Anyone can get angry, that's easy, but to get angry with the right person to the right degree at the right time and for the right reason, that's not easy. This quote by Aristotle encapsulates a universal challenge, especially when it comes to family. It's natural for family conflicts to affect us deeply. After all, the closest relationships are often the most complex. But how many times do we allow these differences to invade our peace, turning small arguments into emotional storms that seem endless? The key is not to avoid conflicts because they're inevitable, but to learn how to manage them without sacrificing your inner peace. This is where the practical exercise I want to propose comes in: the mindful pause. The next time you feel a conversation escalating into uncomfortable territory or a family member's behavior starts to touch a sensitive spot, stop for a moment and take a deep breath. Ask yourself, what am I trying to solve here? Is it worth my peace? This pause not only helps you avoid impulsive reactions, but also allows you to see the situation more clearly, from a place of serenity rather than confrontation. Remember, you don't have to win every argument or solve every family problem in one conversation. Sometimes, the real act of wisdom is in letting go of what you can't control. This doesn't mean becoming indifferent, but rather prioritizing your emotional well-being. Imagine for a moment the freedom you'd feel by no longer carrying expectations and dramas that aren't yours. Wouldn't that be an immense relief? If these ideas are resonating with you, I'd love for you to give this video a like and subscribe so we can keep exploring ways to build a more serene and meaningful life together. Let me know in the comments which country you're listening from, and if this reflection is helping you see family relationships from a different perspective. Every comment you share reminds us that we're not alone on this journey. At the end of the day, peace is not something you should negotiate or give up, not even for the people you love. It's a limited and precious resource that, like a garden, needs to be cared for and protected. Because when you're at peace, you can offer the best of yourself, and that's far more valuable than any sacrifice you make to maintain an apparent harmony. As Seneca said, true happiness consists in not depending on the whims of others. Make that truth your guide and protect your peace as the greatest gift you can give yourself. Number 4, don't let guilt control your decisions. Guilt, that annoying reminder that you could always have done more, said it better, or acted differently. It seems like a well-meaning friend, but in reality it's more like an uninvited guest who comfortably settles in your mind and starts giving opinions on everything, even things that aren't their business. From a young age, we're taught to associate guilt with responsibility, as if carrying it is a proof of how much we care about others. But what if I told you that guilt is nothing more than a poorly managed emotion that ends up controlling your life? Guilt can be a good teacher, but a terrible travel companion. If you stop and think, many of the decisions we make out of guilt often have consequences that harm us more than anyone else. I didn't want to, but I did it, so I wouldn't look bad, or I felt obligated to agree, are phrases we've all said at some point. And in the end, what remains is the feeling of having betrayed something far more important than others' expectations: your inner peace. Seneca said, "He who is a slave to his guilt will never be free," and this truth becomes especially relevant at this stage of life. You've made it this far, facing more than anyone could summarize in words, and yet, are you still allowing an invisible weight to decide for you? Guilt shouldn't be the helm of your ship. It should only be a compass that helps you correct your course when necessary. I propose a practical exercise to begin breaking the cycle. Every time you feel that guilt is pushing you to do something, pause and write down 2 things. First, what you really want to do. Second, what you think others expect from you. Then ask yourself, what happens if I choose what I want instead of what they expect? Write down that answer too. What you'll find, in most cases, is that the fears that feed your guilt aren't as big as you thought. And most importantly, you'll realize that choosing yourself doesn't destroy the world, but it does build a more authentic version of your life. Freeing yourself from guilt doesn't mean you stop caring about others, but that you start caring about yourself too. It's an act of self-love that doesn't take anything from anyone, but returns everything you had sacrificed in the name of that misunderstood emotion. Because in the end, living from guilt is like walking around with stones in your pockets. No one forces them on you, but you keep choosing to carry them. Let them go, one by one, and discover how light life can be when your decisions come from the desire to be happy, not the fear of disappointing others. Number 5, don't give up on your dreams or passions. In the 19th century, a woman named Anna Mary Robertson, better known as Grandma Moses, began painting. She didn't start in her 20s or 40s. Anna picked up the brushes when she was 77, an age when most people would have long put aside any idea of starting something new. She did it because her hands, worn out from years of farm work, no longer allowed her to embroider, but her mind remained restless, searching for a way to express itself. Instead of surrendering to inactivity or settling for the idea that her time had passed, Anna decided to try something she had never done before: telling stories through painting. For many, this story sounds like a nice example of inspiration, but not something achievable. Well, Gabriel, not everyone is an artist, you might be thinking. But here's the interesting part. Neither was Anna. She had no formal training or a studio full of canvases. She started painting on wood and cardboard with basic materials, without pretensions. Her intention wasn't to become famous or exhibit in museums, but to find joy in the act of creation. Her first painting, simple and full of life, was the beginning of a new chapter that unknowingly would change her life completely. At 80, her works began to be exhibited, and her name became a symbol that it's never too late to start. What does this have to do with you? Much more than you think. Dreams and passions don't have an expiration date. The only thing that kills them is the wrong idea that there's no more time to pursue them. Maybe your passion isn't painting. Maybe you've always wanted to write a book, learn to play an instrument, or even grow a garden full of the flowers you loved as a child. The question isn't what, but why you haven't done it. And here comes the most common excuse. At my age, why bother? That question, though it seems reasonable, is a trap. Why bother? For you. To feel that spark of excitement that comes when you do something that connects you with yourself, something that reminds you you're alive. Grandma Moses didn't start painting to sell paintings. She did it because, in every brushstroke, she found a part of herself that still wanted to be discovered. What this story teaches us is that it's never too late to embrace what moves us. Life won't always be indulgent, it's true, but amid the difficulties, there are still small moments to decide what to do with what you have. Passion doesn't need recognition or perfection. It only needs space to grow. Imagine for a moment what it would be like to wake up each day with the excitement of exploring something you've always wanted to do. Maybe no one else will understand, but that doesn't matter, because you're not doing it for them. You're doing it because in those moments of connection with your passion, time stops mattering and everything else seems to fall into place. If there's one thing you can learn from Anna Mary Robertson, it's that passions don't age. We let them die when we forget what they mean to us. So ask yourself, what part of you is still waiting to be discovered? No matter how much time has passed, as long as you're here, you still have the chance to discover it. And believe me, that's worth more than any excuse not to try. Number 6, don't let anyone steal your self-esteem. Imagine that, when you were born, you were given a perfect mirror, a clear reflection of who you are. As you grow, that mirror passes from hand to hand. Your parents, your friends, society, and each one of them manipulates it a little. Some polish it with care, others stain it with criticism, and some, without thinking, deeply scratch it. You reach adulthood holding a mirror that no longer seems like yours. Every time you look at it, you see more of the marks left by others than your own face. But at this stage in life, you're confronted with an uncomfortable truth. No one else should be touching that mirror, because the only person who can reflect who you truly are is you. Sometimes, living feels like a constant negotiation with the world about how much you're worth. From a young age, we're taught to seek approval, applause at school, the "I'm proud of you" from our parents, recognition at work. And so we continue, as if our worth depended on an external committee that decides if we're enough. But who gave them that power? More importantly, why do we keep handing it over to others? Self-esteem isn't a currency someone else can distribute. It's a flame that's lit from within. Imagine you decide to reclaim that mirror. At first, it may be unsettling. Perhaps you'll find cracks you didn't know were there, or stains left by others that you assumed were part of your reflection. But here's the good news. That mirror can be cleaned. Every time you choose to listen to yourself instead of others' judgments, you're polishing it. Every time you choose to speak kindly to yourself instead of repeating old criticisms, you're repairing it. Every time you look at yourself and accept what you see, you're returning its original shine. Don't let anyone, not even your own negative thoughts, continue holding that mirror for you. Because if you think about it, what do they know about everything you've been through? What do they know about the nights you got up when everything seemed lost? What do they know about the times you chose to keep going, despite fear and uncertainty? Those are the marks that truly matter, the ones that make your reflection unique, valuable. Self-esteem isn't a luxury or a reward. It's a right. It's what allows you to get up every day and remember that no matter what others say or think, you're already enough. So take that mirror, look at yourself with the compassion you would give an old friend, and remember that your worth isn't for sale. At the end of the day, the only thing that really matters is what you see when you choose to look beyond the marks others have left. And what you'll find there, if you give yourself the chance, is someone worthy of love, respect, and admiration, yourself. Number 7, don't neglect your health for anyone. Your body, with all its imperfections, aches and scars, is the only place you will inhabit throughout your entire life. Yet, we tend to treat it as if it were a replaceable tool, something we can ignore until it fails. How many times have you postponed that medical checkup or ignored that discomfort because there are more important things to do? Maybe you did it out of dedication to others, or maybe because thinking about your health reminds you that time keeps moving forward. But here's the thing. Not taking care of your body doesn't stop time. It only speeds up the bills you'll eventually have to pay. Society has sold us the idea that taking care of ourselves is selfish, as if prioritizing your well-being were an unnecessary act of rebellion. But in reality, it is the most generous act you can do, not just for yourself, but for the people around you. What's the use of being the emotional support or the problem solver if, in the end, your body starts sending you overdue bills? And just to be clear, we're not talking about perfection. It's not about becoming an athlete at 70 or the most disciplined person at the gym. It's about caring for what you have, nourishing it with the respect it deserves, and recognizing that your physical well-being is the foundation for everything else. Some time ago, I read the story of a man named Li Qingyuan, a Chinese herbalist who supposedly lived over 200 years. While the stories about his longevity have a mythical air, there's something real in his teachings. Li used to say that the key to a long and healthy life was balance. Balance between rest and activity, between what you consume and what you offer, between listening to your body and honoring it with your actions. You don't need to live 2 centuries to learn this lesson, but you do need to understand that every day you neglect your health is a day you're taking away from all that you could enjoy. The problem is that we often don't take care of ourselves until our body forces us to. It's like ignoring the strange noise in your car's engine until it completely stops. But your body isn't a machine. It's a part of you, a reflection of how you choose to relate to yourself. When you eat well, when you move, when you rest, you're sending a clear message. I deserve to feel good. And that message not only changes how you feel physically, it also transforms the relationship you have with yourself. I want to invite you to a small exercise you can do today. Take a moment to listen to your body. Do it with curiosity, not judgment. Do you feel tired? Is there any discomfort you've been ignoring? What could you do today, no matter how small, to take care of yourself? It could be as simple as drinking more water, taking a 10-minute walk, or going to bed half an hour earlier tonight. The important thing is that you start treating your body as an ally, not as an obstacle or enemy. Remember, taking care of your health isn't an act of selfishness, it's an act of self-love. And if you need motivation, think of all the things you can still do, the places you want to visit, the laughs you want to share. Every small gesture you make for your well-being is a step toward a fuller and more meaningful life. Because in the end, the true gift isn't living longer, but living better. And that gift is one only you can give yourself. Number 8. Don't sacrifice joy for fear of what others will think. Isn't it curious how heavy the weight of what others will think is? You can't see it, but it's there, like an uncomfortable guest that never leaves. You stop in front of the mirror before heading out, adjust what you're wearing, wonder if that decision you made will raise an eyebrow or, worse yet, lead to people talking behind your back. And you do all of this as if their opinions had a real impact on your life, as if they were going to pay your bills, support you in tough times, or even offer anything valuable. But if you really think about it, how many times have you limited your own joy out of fear of something so intangible and hollow as the approval of others? I want to propose a mini challenge to start freeing yourself from this invisible burden. Today, after watching this video, I want you to do something that brings you joy, something that comes from deep within, without worrying about whether it's right, wrong, or what your neighbor will think. Maybe it's wearing that colorful shirt you've kept hidden because it's not appropriate for your age, dancing in your living room like you're at a party, or enjoying an ice cream while walking at your own pace, savoring every bite. It doesn't have to be monumental, just something that connects you with that simple, pure feeling of being alive, no matter whether anyone else approves. This small act of rebellion has a profound philosophical background. The Stoics, with their practical wisdom, always insisted that the judgment of others is just that, a judgment, an opinion that doesn't define who you are or what you're worth. Epictetus said, "Freedom is not found in avoiding the opinions of others, but in not being a slave to them. When you let the fear of what others will think decide for you, you're giving away your freedom, that treasure that only you should protect." From the perspective of positive psychology, this practice also has a scientific basis. It's been shown that doing things that bring us joy, especially when they break patterns of self-censorship, releases dopamine, a hormone that boosts our sense of well-being. In simple terms, choosing your own happiness, even in something small, literally rewires your brain to be more resilient and optimistic. I know it's not easy. Over the years, we've learned to measure our actions according to the thermometer of social expectations. But what would happen if, for just a moment, you dared to ignore it? If you start listening more to your own voice than to the murmurs of others, you'll discover something powerful. Joy doesn't depend on others, but on the relationship you have with yourself. So here's the challenge. Find a moment today to do something that fills you with joy, no matter how simple, and do it without asking for permission. At first, you might feel a little discomfort, like you're crossing an invisible line. But I promise you that on the other side of that line is the freedom to be who you really are, without masks, without judgments, just you. Because in the end, the only thing that truly matters is not what others say about you, but the joy with which you choose to live. Number 9. Don't forget that your life matters too. In 1977, a woman named Ernestine Shepherd woke up one morning feeling that her life no longer had purpose. She was over 60, facing the loss of her sister and a sense of emptiness that seemed impossible to fill. Up until that point, She had lived a completely ordinary life, with no major achievements to boast of or extraordinary stories to tell. But one day, while flipping through old photographs, something inside her changed. She remembered a promise she had made to her sister, to stay active, healthy, and make the most of every day. Even though sadness still lingered, she decided to honor that promise. What came next is what's truly remarkable. Ernestine, who had never stepped foot in a gym or run more than 2 blocks, decided to start training. At 74, she became one of the most recognized bodybuilders in the world, a woman who broke records, inspired thousands, and completely redefined what it means to live life fully in old age. But her story isn't just about muscles or trophies. It's about remembering that your life matters, even when circumstances try to convince you otherwise. Ernestine's example has much to teach us, especially when external or internal voices push us to put ourselves on the back burner. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that the life left ahead isn't as important as the one that's already passed. But as the Stoics knew well, the value of life isn't in its duration, but in how we choose to live it. Marcus Aurelius said, "Stop for a moment and reflect on all that you've received from life. This moment is all you need to be happy." This phrase reminds us that it's never too late to reclaim our story and give it the meaning it deserves. From the perspective of positive psychology, we also find support for this approach. Martin Seligman, one of its leading figures, suggests that human fulfillment doesn't depend on what we possess or achieve, but on our ability to find purpose. Life takes on new meaning when we choose to focus our attention on what we can build today, regardless of what's behind us. This isn't about ignoring difficulties, but about reminding yourself that as long as you're here, you have the power to choose how you want to live. And what about you? What promise could you make to yourself today? It doesn't have to be something grand like Ernestine's bodybuilding journey. Maybe it's getting up tomorrow and going for a walk, planting a tree, writing that letter you've been putting off for years, or learning something new that's always intrigued you. What matters isn't the size of the gesture, but the intention behind it. Recognizing yourself as someone who still has much to offer to both yourself and the world. Ernestine's story is a powerful reminder that life doesn't end as long as you're still breathing. Every day, no matter how small it may seem, is an opportunity to reclaim your voice, your purpose, and your joy. Because no matter how many years pass, your life still matters, and how you choose to live, it is the greatest legacy you can leave yourself. Thank you for making it this far. If there's one thing I hope you've taken away from this journey, it's this: your life, your decisions, and your well-being are just as valuable as anything else the world may demand from you. You've spent so much time focusing on others, meeting expectations, and carrying burdens that often weren't even yours. But today, as you close this video, I want you to allow yourself something different. Recognition. Recognize that every step you take toward yourself, no matter how small, has a powerful impact on how you live and the joy you allow yourself to feel. I'd love to know where you're listening from, and I encourage you to share in the comments. I live in wisdom. It's a reminder for you and for everyone who comes to this space that it's never too late to claim what belongs to you. Your time, your peace, your dreams. I also want to invite you to subscribe if you haven't already, because here we continue to build together a place where reflection and action go hand in hand. And if this message resonated with you, share it with someone who might need it. Sometimes, a single word can be the push someone needs to change their course. Remember, life isn't measured by what you sacrifice, but by what you choose to keep and nurture for yourself. At the end of the day, no matter how many years pass or how many challenges you face, there will always be space to live with intention and purpose. You are worthy of that fulfillment, and it's in your hands to decide how you want to make the most of the time ahead. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.